Every day we make dozens of decisions about food, from where we're going to get it from, how much it's going to cost, and how to prepare it. Earlier this year, the Health Canada released a revamped food guide to help us make those decisions. It's a tool designed to promote healthy eating through several nutritional guidelines. Now imagine you're sitting down with food guide in hand, ready to plan your meals for the week, and you suddenly realize that it's going to be next to impossible to follow the recommendations, not because you don't want to, but because you can't. I argue that this food guide is an example of an expected and uniform cultural ideal that fails to apply to a large number of regions and cultures in Canada. While I don't deny the basic nutritional recommendations, I do believe that it fails to take into consideration the incredibly diverse population in Canada. There are hundreds of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities all living under different circumstances within Canada. For example, there are some who don't have access to the recommended foods or can't afford it. There are those living in remote communities on reserve and in urban settings. There are those who are fighting for their traditional territories to protect their livelihoods and cultural food systems. And then you have those who don't even have access to those traditional territories. Then you have those who can't even make water their drink of choice because they don't have access to clean drinking water. How can a food guide recommend things that aren't feasible for many people in Canada? It is very easy to fall into unhealthy eating habits when your reality and identity aren't reflected in the collective ideology of health. I'm not saying that an Indigenous food guide is the end-all be-all solution to Indigenous health in Canada. What I am saying is that the Canadian food guide fails to take into consideration these things when making recommendations. But a great thing that can be done is that Indigenous communities can create custom food guides that reflect their reality and hopes for the future of their communities. Through representing local and Indigenous food systems, acknowledging cultural food practices, and so on. Creating a one-of-a-kind food guide that utilizes the basic nutritional guidelines helps communities address health, engage community development, connect them to cultural food systems, and connect them to the cultural food systems. Now imagine a food guide tailored to your reality. Thank you.